Michael Dempsey with the Brice's Crossroads Foundation, and we are here in Vicksburg to learn about a fascinating Mississippi unit. This unit took an active role in the siege here at Vicksburg in 1863. It would later go on to actively campaign in North Mississippi in 1864. This unit, the 38th Mississippi Infantry Regiment. As the war went on, it would go on to be known as the 38th Mississippi Mounted Infantry and later the 38th Mississippi Cavalry. The 38th Mississippi Infantry Regiment formed in the late spring of 1862. Most of the men came from counties in central and south Mississippi. Some of the companies were formed in the communities where the Vicksburg campaign of 1863 would affect greatly. This is the old cemetery for the now ghost town of Rocky Springs. Many of the 38th Mississippi came from this area and the surrounding Claiborne County, several of which will be laid to rest here in the years after the war. The 38th Mississippi would campaign extensively in North Mississippi in 1862. They were briefly part of the Siege of Corinth in late May of that year, and the unit would be under hostile enemy fire at the Battle of Iuka in September 1862. A few weeks after Iuka, on October 3rd and 4th, the 38th would face its most serious pre-Vicksburg trial by fire when they fought at the Battle of Corinth, also known as the Second Battle of Corinth. At that Union victory, the 38th Mississippi would suffer 35 casualties.
The 38th Mississippi Infantry was located north of Vicksburg, around Haynes and Snyder's Bluff. That was their camp location as part of Louis Hebert's brigade. So they did actually not participate in any of the preceding engagements from Port Gibson to Raymond, Jackson to Champion Hill and Big Black River. They were stationed north of the city, and thus, as Grant's army is marching towards the city and as the Confederates are retreating from the Big Black River, Hebert's brigade is recalled into the Confederate defensive perimeter. Those men will then take up a position starting from the Stockade Redan and flowing south along that Confederate position, ending at the 3rd Louisiana Redan, covering that long section. That section would be one of the principal locations where many of these direct assaults will take place, and thus the 38th Mississippi will find themselves in the heaviest of action. Their precipice and their defensive line was located looking over the Glass Bayou. And it was on the morning of May 19th, 1863, that the Union assault of Thomas Ransom's brigade makes their way up and over the closest hill line into the bottomland of Glass Bayou and trying to make a direct assault on this location. The 38th Mississippi would envelop Ransom's brigade with rifle fire, and the supporting artillery from 3rd Louisiana and the Redan north of their position would enfilade those Federals, pinning them down and causing heavy casualties. The 38th Mississippi will be involved in the principal actions of May 22nd, 1863. Their position, however, is not assaulted as the 23rd Indiana moves south of their position, but the 38th is involved in an enfilade fire, helping to pin that regiment down as it tries to attack the 3rd Louisiana Redan. However, at 2:15 p.m. in the afternoon of May 22nd, 1863, Ransom's brigade will again form up to attack the 38th Mississippi, supported on their right by Giles Smith's brigade and many of the other units that we had talked about in this series. Those units will then assault that location for which the 38th has been tasked to defend. At some point in this time period, as the fire from the Federals slackens and as they become pinned down, the 38th is recalled north of that position to help support and blunt the Federal assault on the Stockade Redan itself. And thus they will make their way precariously marching over open ground, taking casualties to support their brothers north of their position. For the 38th Mississippi, I like to use quotes from the soldiers themselves. And one of those individuals that was writing about his experiences during the siege of Vicksburg on May 22nd, 1863, as he's watching those Union soldiers form up to assault the location that they are preparing to defend, writes, "The enemy had in the meantime massed troops behind their works in our front, and poured into my ranks one continuous blaze of musketry, while the artillery on my left threw enfilading shot and shell into my columns with deadly effect. When the cannonading ceased, the Federals formed 3, really 4, lines of battle near the woods and began a steady advance upon our works, their lines headlong to the front. As they rushed up the slope to our works, they invariably fell backwards as the death shot greeted them. And yet, the survivors never wavered. Some of them fell within a few yards of our works. If any of the first line escaped, I did not see them. They came into the very jaws of death and died. Surely, no more desperate courage than this could be displayed by mortal man."
At the siege of Vicksburg, the 38th had 74 casualties, and a long list of men hospitalized for serious illnesses.
Those Confederate soldiers that gave their lives during the siege of Vicksburg along the siege lines and in the military hospitals were taken to Cedar Hill Cemetery, that cemetery for which the Graveyard Road gets its name. Today, those soldiers are now placed in Soldiers' Rest, which is an honorary location where a small percentage of those soldiers that have been identified have a marker today.
This is Cedar Hill Cemetery in Vicksburg. Most of the Confederate dead from the siege of Vicksburg will be buried here, including several men from the 38th Mississippi. In the early months of 1864, with many less men than they started with 2 years prior, the unit was ordered to be mounted and redesignated the 38th Mississippi Mounted Infantry Regiment. There would also be a new commanding officer to take charge of the 38th.
This is Grand Gulf Military Park near Port Gibson, Mississippi. This wonderful site has information on Major Robert C. McKay. Major McKay was a local to the Port Gibson area, and he was the commander of the 38th Mississippi at the Battle of Tupelo, also known as the Battle of Harrisburg, fought in July 1864. There, while gallantly leading his men, Major McKay would be killed in action, along with many members of the 38th Mississippi. We're at the Old Town Creek site that interprets the Battle of Tupelo-Harrisburg. Now, the 38th Mississippi was not involved in the fighting that took place around this site. However, they were heavily involved in the overall battle. In fact, in less than 3 days of fighting around the Tupelo area, the 38th would suffer 74 casualties, about the same amount the unit would suffer in the entirety of the Vicksburg campaign. Of the dozen or so Mississippi units involved in the Battle of Tupelo-Harrisburg, none would suffer more casualties than the 38th did.
An even more depleted 38th Mississippi would continue to fight after Tupelo, and at times in 1864 and 1865, they would be known as the 38th Mississippi Cavalry. Besides a few days in Tennessee in 1862, and campaigning the last 6 weeks of the war in Alabama in 1865, these Confederate soldiers would spend their entire service fighting in their home state of Mississippi. Thanks for watching our videos. Please stay tuned for more content and let us know if there's any stories you want us to tell. And until next time, goodbye from Tupelo.